Monahan parked in front. Docks to Caulfield. Fire. Scores!
You are about to enter Habs After Dark with Recliner Sports.
3, 2, 1, 0.
What is up, gang? Welcome to Canada After Dark, aka Habs After Dark, aka whatever you want to call it. It's our special edition, international hockey edition of Habs After Dark, guys. Canada After Dark, we have a 3-1 victory for the United States of America over Canada. Interesting hockey game, lots to talk about. Did we enjoy it? Did we not enjoy it? Do we think Canada played okay? Has the United States taken over the mantle as the greatest hockey nation in the world? Or is this just a one-off? Is this just a blip on the radar? Are we going to get another shot at them in the final? What are we talking about, guys? What do we think about that game? The game was relatively close, I thought, all along. Shenanigans to start the game. We'll be interested to hear what you guys think about all of that. The fights at the beginning of the game. 3 fights in the first 9 seconds. I've got my thoughts, but I'll be interested to hear what yours are. So if you're over there on TikTok, guys, come on over to YouTube. Go Habs Go. Yes, Claude. Welcome. Billy D, welcome. I'll be interested to hear what your thoughts. If you are not yet subscribed, please do so. The subscribe button is right here below the screen. You can also hit the notification bell and the thumbs up if you are enjoying the content. We are trying to grow our community, and we are trying to build a space for people to come and have civil, intelligent conversations about hockey, in particular the Montreal Canadiens, but generally about hockey. I see there are 3 people in the room at the moment, so the crowd is small. I'm not expecting a big crowd. I think we probably would have gotten a bigger crowd if Canada would have won. However, with the loss, I suspect that the crowd is going to be a little sparse tonight on a Saturday night, so we will certainly stick around for a little bit, and depending on how many people show up will depend on how long the show goes for. If you're watching on the replay, then we also invite you to also hit that subscribe button, hit the notification bell, and feel free to give us a thumbs up if you do enjoy what you're watching. So yeah, all you guys over on TikTok, I see you over there, Hexy. Come on over and join us on YouTube if you want to have a conversation about that game. If you want to talk about your thoughts about that game, what we think it means. So again, it was an interesting game. Opened up with 3 fights in the first 9 seconds. I'm not sure what I thought about that. I guess to a certain extent that was kind of exciting to watch, but it was also kind of lame and stupid, if I'm being quite honest. I don't think it really made a difference in any way, shape, or form about the game. Matthew and Brady Tkachuk certainly like to pick their opponents. They don't certainly like to fight anybody who has any real chance of giving them a decent fight. But it is what it is. That's kind of what America stands for right now. But I thought that the Canadian players all stood up and acquitted themselves quite well against 3 of the biggest assholes in the NHL. JT Miller, Matthew Tkachuk, and Brady Tkachuk. I don't think there's a threesome of bigger doofuses around than those 3 guys. And I thought that Hagel, Parayko, and Bennett held their own, despite the fact that none of those 3 guys are really fighters. I mean, I guess none of the 3 American guys are really fighters either. But certainly the Americans were the guys who picked their fights there. And I thought the Canadians did quite well to stand their ground. Parayko in particular, I'm not sure. I mean, JT Miller, I guess, picked a guy who was bigger than he was, to his credit, I guess. And Parayko, I thought, did quite well in the fight. But again, I get how that might have got the crowd fired up, and it might have got some fans fired up. For me, again, Kevin Bieksa's over there squirting all over the microphone about it being the greatest start to a hockey game of all time. I mean, it's not. It's just not. I mean, fighting is fighting, and it's a part of the game. I get that. And, there is a role for fighting as far as, setting the tone and doing different things on the ice. But, I mean, realistically, the game did not need that. So, thank you, Rat King. I appreciate it. Thank you for coming on over. I appreciate it. Rat King says he came over from TikTok. So if any of you other guys are over on TikTok and you want to join the conversation and talk about the game, then come on over to YouTube. The channel is Recliner Sports 4. It's really, really easy to do. Just ask Rat King. So, I mean, after all that shenanigans in the first, minute of the game, I think the game was an exciting game to watch. It was exciting. It was fun. I think both teams played really well. I think that the Canadiens probably got out a little bit early. But I thought the Americans came back really well. I mean, it's what we're seeing, right? The Americans have a really, really strong group of young forwards. And typically the Canadiens are able to carry the day a little bit with their experience and their, so quote unquote Canadian style of hockey. But that wasn't the case today, right? The Americans were the better team overall when it came down to it. I thought on defense, I mean, obviously losing Makar shortly before the game was not a huge positive for Canada. That would have been tough to adjust to. It would have been a hard thing for them to adjust to. Lose. I mean, they've lost Theodore and Makar now, so Thomas Harley came in, and I thought he did quite well. I mean, he did very well. I thought he was one of the better players tonight for Canada. But again, that Canadian experience, those veteran Canadian style hockey players didn't really carry the day tonight, right? Sidney Crosby didn't have a great game. Brad Marchand, I don't think, had a great game. Drew Doughty played well. But again, that Canadian quote-unquote grit didn't really carry the day today. It was overcome by the pure skill of the American forward. So Anonymous says they owned us defensively. I wouldn't say they owned Canada defensively. I thought that the Americans probably played a bit of a better defensive game. The Canadians did have more scoring opportunities, although the Americans did carry the play, I think, a little bit. We'll see that when we look at the scoreboard. We'll see what some of those stats talk about. As a Cats fan and a U.S. fan, that Benny versus Brady fight had me torn. Yeah, I guess. I mean, again, Brady Tkachuk picked a guy who really, isn't on his level as far as size, as far as physicality, as far as fighting goes. But again, that's Brady Tkachuk's MO, right? When's the last time you saw Brady Tkachuk fight a heavyweight, right? Or fight a guy, he's supposed to be such a tough guy, right? Everybody talks about how tough Brady Tkachuk is. But when's the last time you saw him fight somebody who's a fighter? I mean, Sam Bennett, right? The guy who went to the NHL Combine when he was a rookie and couldn't do a single pull-up. So again, different categories there. And that's one of the things that's always bothered me about Brady Tkachuk is that he runs around like he's a very tough guy, and people talk about him like he's a very tough guy, but he typically doesn't like to fight guys who have any chance whatsoever of giving him a decent fight. He usually prefers to pick on guys who can't really give him much of a fight, and then he turns and runs when you saw him. Again, I'm not a big Zadorov fan, but he ran away from Zadorov. We've seen him run away from Jack-Eye multiple times in his career. Again, I'm not expecting, I wouldn't expect him to fight a Jack-Eye because, Jack-Eye would absolutely tear his head off. But at the same time, if you're going to run around and pretend to be a tough guy, then, sometimes you've got to fight the tough guys. So fighting gives you momentum, gets the crowd going, and gives you energy. Yes, that was a bit much, but the USA versus Canada is a rivalry, and that was to be expected, in my opinion. Well, it can give you momentum. I don't think that it necessarily does. I don't think it gave either team momentum tonight. I don't think it really had any impact whatsoever on the game. Maybe the Americans would have come out a lot flatter if they hadn't had those fights. I guess we can always speculate about that. But again, I think that the degree to which fighting gives a team momentum is really kind of overrated a little bit. again, I'm not going to say it was horrible. I'm not going to say it was bad that they had those fights at the beginning of the game. I mean, I do get that there's entertainment value in it. But I mean, to go on the air and the first things out of your mouth in the first intermission that was the greatest start of a hockey game ever is, I mean, it's a bit much for me, and it's not really what I would have taken away from that. To me, it was kind of a non-factor. For the U.S., they took probably, the guys who were their two best forwards in the last game, those guys are out of the game for the first 5 minutes. I mean, JT Miller was a non-factor for the rest of the game. So I didn't really think that really had I guess it had it had entertainment value, but I don't think it had much of an impact on the game at all, really. What did I think about Doughty? I thought Doughty had a good game. Doughty obviously loves playing for Canada. You can tell, for a guy who, missed, the first 45 or so games of the season and then, played 4 or 5 games and then, is coming right to Team Canada. He seems to be playing quite well. He hasn't really missed a beat. He is a solid defender. He moves the puck really well. Really nice pass on the first goal, the McDavid goal, hitting McDavid in full stride, recognizing that he was open and recognizing that play. I think that Drew Doughty is a gamer, right? Like that's what John Cooper talked about the team being made up of gamers and winners, and I think that's what Drew Doughty really is. Yeah, it was a close game, Billy D. Again, it was a close game. I don't think we expected either team to run away with it. I certainly didn't expect that. But it was a close game on the scoreboard, and it was a pretty close game in just about every category, every relevant category statistically. So I thought it was a fun game to watch. Rumbum, I thought it was a good game. It was fun to watch. Like I just said, it was exciting. It was good hockey. It's best on best. We haven't seen it in a long time. The crowd was electric. The players were into it. Certainly better than an all-star game. Like this is not not a game where they pussyfoot around and they refuse to be physical. And it was it is what it is, right? It was it was a great game. It was great hockey, right? It's you could argue that that's the greatest collection of talent that ever was on the same ice together. I mean, there's obviously some other examples of that historically, but for the most part, that was really great hockey to watch. I thought it was fun from the very first second to the end of it. It was a really close game. I don't think either team dominated the other. I thought they both played really, really well. It was fun to watch. Don't think Brady would challenge Wi-Fi. Well, I mean, he kind of got in his face a couple times and then kind of backed off a little bit, Billy D, over the last couple years. So, but yeah, again, I don't think he's fighting heavyweight. So I think the fighting right off the drop would have been more impactful had Canada not scored the first goal after it all settled. Well, that's the point, Rat King, right? It didn't really give the Americans any momentum because the Canadians sort of came out and scored. First of all, they got a power play, which kind of slowed down any American momentum that would have been there, and then they scored the first goal. So, like I said, it had entertainment value, and I guess to a certain degree, it was exciting and fun to watch. But as far as it being like the most exciting start of all time, I think again, I get that some people get boners from watching stuff like that, but again, none of the fights were really that great fights, but they were what they were, and again, I'm sure that's what people are going to talk about, in years from now when these games are talked about down the road. So, but again, I don't think that those fights had any real impact on the game. I don't think it gave either of the team any momentum or either team any advantage. Maybe if one guy had gotten the shit kicked out of him, then it would have given the other team the momentum, and maybe that was part of it, right? Maybe Canada was good to stand up and stand up to those guys, and not that's what the Kachucks were looking for, was to grab a guy that they knew they could beat up and beat them up and maybe get that momentum, and it didn't happen. But I just didn't find that it had a huge effect or impact on the game. Well, if you're a tough guy, then, I mean, that's the whole idea, right? Anonymous is, you fight the guys who are in front of you. If you're tough and you're a fighter, you fight the guys who are in front of you. I mean, that's kind of the way the world works, right? Like if you want to have that reputation, then you fight everybody. You don't fight just the guys who you think you can beat up. Like that's the definition of a bully, right? Guys who go around fighting guys who are smaller than them and who they know they can beat up. Like again, I don't get. I mean, again, I'm not suggesting that he should go and fight Ryan Reeves or he should fight Matthew Olivier or guys like that. But like, pick a guy your own size. How about like pick a guy that might give you a good fight. Don't pick a guy who's shorter, lighter, and not doesn't fight like you do. Like everyone keeps talking about Brady Tkachuk being tough. That's not tough. Right? If I go around beating up guys who are 6 feet tall, that doesn't make me tough. I mean, it is what it is, right? Beating up a guy who is 5 inches shorter than you and weighs 30 pounds less than you, and has never fought in the NHL before, or has only got a few fights here and there, isn't the sign of a tough guy to me. But whatever. I may be off base here, but I just think I need to see more out of McKinnon. Like, you're supposed to be a top 5 player, and I'm just not seeing enough. I don't know. I might be off base here. I thought he had a fantastic game against Sweden, Rumbum. I do think he struggled to get room out there tonight. I thought he and McKinnon both, he and McDavid both, had a hard time sort of getting off a little bit, right? Getting that space that they need to do the things that they do. I thought the Americans, both on their forwards and their defense, kind of stifled that a little bit, and I think that was probably part of their game plan to do that. So again, I don't think you're off base, but again, I mean, I think that the entire team struggled tonight, right, for Canada. I thought the defensive play from the Americans was actually quite good, all things considered. Crosby didn't really get off, very much tonight. Obviously McDavid, was probably the best of the best out there tonight offensively for Canada, but I don't think that there was anybody that really was spectacular offensively for the Canadiens tonight. If you're over on TikTok, guys, come on over and join us on YouTube. The instructions are on the screen there. Recliner Sports 4 is where we're at. If you want to talk about the game, then come on over. He's also a very skilled hockey player other than his physical abilities, so I don't think he should be hated. I don't hate him. I didn't say that I hate him, Anonymous. I said I don't like the way that he picks his fights. He's a skilled hockey player. I agree with you. He's a very good hockey player. But again, I'm not speaking about his talents as a hockey player. I don't think I ever mentioned anything about that. All I was saying is that he, has a tendency to pick fights with guys who are smaller, and less experienced as far as fighting goes in the NHL, which to me belies the reputation that he has as being a so-called tough guy or tough player. That's all I'm talking about. I'm not talking about hating him. I'm not talking about him as a hockey player. I'm talking about just one aspect of his game. 2-1 Hagel beat Tkachuk and Parayko beat Miller. Okay. I thought all fight. Well, I wouldn't have given a win to anybody in those fights. I would have scored all those fights a draw. Maybe Parayko beat Miller, or would have maybe won a decision if we want to, speak in boxing terms. But to me, I thought that all of the fights were pretty even. Honestly, what's up, Run with Kings? How are you doing tonight? Good to see you as always. Brad H, do you think Canada can more from their depth in upcoming games? Can they get more from their depth? Yeah, I think they can. Again, I think that the American defense played really well tonight, right? And they certainly put a bit of a lockdown on the Canadian offense. I don't think there was a lot of offense from anybody, really. I mean, McDavid is probably the only exception of somebody who really was consistently dangerous out there for the majority of the game. For me, that would be my takeaway. Brady definitely comes off with the little brother syndrome because Matthew did it. He had to. Yeah, I don't know about that. They both probably had it planned out to a certain degree before the game. Again, I just don't know that it was I mean, again, I don't think it hurt the Americans, that strategy, but again, I don't think it helped them either. So, yeah, he's an agitator, but again, like I said, Billy D, to me, Brady isn't really an agitator. Matthew's an agitator. Brady, is a big, physical, strong guy. What's up, Pete Martin? It was a tough loss, yes. Tough loss, but again, I think Canada played well, and I'm not. I'm happy that I got to watch a really good hockey game, and I think that the better team won tonight. I certainly think that the Americans deserved the win. That's not to say that I don't think that Canada would have deserved the win if they had gotten it. I think both teams played well, and it was a pretty evenly played game. But yeah, just getting back to Billy D and Anonymous. He is an agitator to a degree, but he's also put forward as a tough guy, right? Everyone talks about how tough Brady Tkachuk is, right? He's a bit, for his age, and we're like, ever since day one, he's this, okay, but if you're a tough guy, be a tough guy. Like, don't go out there and start picking fights with guys who are smaller than you and that kind of thing. Like, pick a fight with a guy who can, or take a fight when it's offered to you with a guy. Like, you know what I mean? Like, you got to fight everybody. If you want to be considered a tough guy in the NHL, you got to fight everybody. You don't have to fight everybody. You got to fight when the opportunities are presented to you. You can't back away from one fight and then turn around the next day and fight a guy because he's smaller than you. You can't, when a fight is offered to you, you can't look at it and say, okay, well, no, I'm not going to take this one because, I might lose. Or, okay, I'll take this one because I'm pretty sure I can beat this guy up. Like, I just don't, that doesn't make you a tough guy. I'm just speaking from my experience and from the life I've lived. And I'm not a tough guy either, right? I don't pretend to be, but, I don't typically fight anymore. But, I don't pick my, I'm 6'5" and I weigh 250 pounds. Now, I didn't always weigh 250 pounds, but I don't go around picking fights or with guys who are 6 inches shorter than me and 40, 50 pounds smaller than me. That doesn't make you tough, right? It just doesn't. Good to hear Run with Kings. I didn't think I would get into this game, but forgot how the rivalry game feels being a fan. Yeah, the beginning of the game was kind of electric, right? I thought that the broadcast did a really good job of conveying the vibe in the arena, and the noise and the racket and all that stuff, and the anthems and all that kind of stuff. I thought it was good. And again, the fight certainly did lend to the electricity of the crowd and kind of brought it a little bit. Up a notch or two, and I thought that was exciting, and certainly I thought that the broadcast did a good job of conveying that and getting the excitement behind the game. If Canada makes it to the finals, it could be the most watched hockey game of all time, especially with the anthem booing, 51st state stuff. Hopefully we see it. Yeah, we can talk about the anthem booing, but here's my take on the anthem booing. Listen, if I can understand how an American hockey player or any American would not like to hear their anthem being booed. I can understand that. But at the same time, that American or that American hockey player has to understand that Canadians don't like to be threatened with war by the American president, right? They don't like to be threatened with annexation. They don't like that a president in the United States is talking about this stuff and threatening their country. And listen, I get that you don't want to hear people boo your anthem, but at the same time, you have to understand why they're booing your anthem. And frankly, if the roles were reversed, you would be the first one to probably doing far worse than just booing the Canadian anthem, right? So again, I get it. If you want to tell me that it bothers you to hear your anthem being booed, that's fine. It would bother me too. But listen, you also have to understand why the anthem is being booed. And that it's being booed for a specific reason, and that reason is very legitimate and it's warranted. So that's my take on it. And at the end of the day, you can say that anthem stands for whatever it stands for, but at the end of the day, it's a song, right? It's a song. It's a symbol. You can say that it represents the veterans who died and who fought in the wars and whatever, but it doesn't, right? It doesn't. The song, the flag, those things don't represent what those people did and what those people died for and what they sacrificed for. The rights that came out of those wars and the rights that the rights and the freedoms and the liberties that came out of those wars and what those those people in the wars fought for. That's what stands. That's those things stand for what they did, not not a piece of cloth, not a song, not any of that stuff. So again, that's my take on all of that. I'm sure that there's going to be people who disagree with me on that, but that's my thoughts. If you're offended by the fact that people are booing a song, then I think that perhaps your priorities aren't quite in the right place. So Keith has raised some crazy kids. Yeah, I guess so. Pete Martin, Run with Kings, getting to know each other again. Brady is defend my teammate tough. Depends who he's defending him against. From Pierre LeBrun, Matthew Kachuk says him, his brother Brady, and JT Miller were on a group chat earlier today and decided they wanted to drop the gloves early tonight. Okay. I mean, again, I don't think it really had any impact on the game. Maybe it made them feel good, and I see them on TV smiling over there right now. But, I don't find... it's funny to me to see that those three guys are the ones who decided that they wanted to try to be tough guys tonight. Because the reality is that none of those three guys are tough guys, right? So they decided somehow that they were going to go out and get in a fight early in the game. But again, tough guys don't have to prove. Like if you're tough, you're tough. You don't have to go out and try and prove it. And those are some pretty try hard efforts to be tough guys tonight by those three players. All three of whom have demonstrated that they're far from being tough at the NHL level, right? Neither of the Kachuk brothers have demonstrated themselves to be very tough in the NHL, and certainly JT Miller is a bit of a bully as well, right? We've seen and heard the stories about JT Miller and how he's been a bully in the past. Well, again, Anonymous. I mean, I feel like I'm repeating myself here. Why would you fight a big guy? Well, you fight guys that are equal in size to you. You fight guys that are good fighters, right? If you want to have the reputation of being tough, which Brady Tkachuk does, right? He certainly loves that reputation, and he looks for that reputation. And I get that, the reputation is, he can't make his own reputation. It depends on how other people look at him. And, the reputation comes in away from the way he's talked about by other people. But, if you want to be a tough guy, you have to fight big guys. You can't just fight little guys. It doesn't make you tough. If you fight little guys, it makes you a bully, right? If you fight guys who are your size or could potentially give you a good, fair fight, then you're a tough guy. But if you don't, then you're a bully. Like that's the point. I mean, I don't think that's a complicated concept. It's not a complicated concept. It's it is what it is. Right? Like tough guys, like Matthew Olivier doesn't go around fighting, Sam Bennett. He doesn't go around fighting Brandon Hagel. He doesn't go around fighting, Colton Parayko. Right? That's the point I'm trying to make. That's all good, Pete. I'm not a tough guy by any means. So I don't pretend. Well, maybe I did at one time try to pretend to be in my life, but I'm not really. USA player said they were happy to be the bad guys. Well, whatever. It is what it is. I mean, I think that as an American, I can definitely get the anthem booing completely justified. Well, again, I mean, it is what it is, and I mean, the Canadians aren't booing the anthem to make Americans happy. They're booing the anthem because it means something, and, maybe they are trying to piss them off. I mean, frankly, for me, I think the better strategy would be just to be dead silent during the American anthem, right? Just like dead silent. Like you could hear a fart in the arena, that quiet during the American anthem, like not a sound, like not a peep. And then when the Canadian anthem comes on, you just go absolutely crazy. But again, it's a song. It's at the end of the day, it's a song. It means nothing. It's a symbol. Again, this idea that it's the same thing about kneeling for the anthem and all this stuff. This idea that somehow some sort of sign of disrespect to, the men and women who have died and sacrificed, in wars and stuff like that is just such a stupid concept, because it doesn't. It's not what it stands for. It stands for certain things, but at the end of the day, the right to kneel, the right to boo, the right to do and say what you want. Those are the things that the men and women died for. The military people died for, not for a flag, not for a song, not for a symbol or whatever. So I love most American people. The government sucks. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I love most American people. I think there's a lot of American people that have demonstrated that they're pretty unlovable. But I agree with you. Their current government does suck. 6'5", you're a giant. We'll have to be careful what I say. No, it's all good. It's all good, Billy D. You're safe, Billy D. It's all good. I get the booing. I look at every country's flag representing its people, not their government. Well, I mean, again, the flag represents whatever it represents, but at the end of the day, it's still a flag. It's still a piece of material, right? That's not. It's a symbol, right? And I guess symbols have meaning. That's the whole idea behind a symbol, but it is what it is. JT Miller, as a tough guy, is laughable considering he threw a tantrum he made. Yeah. Again, and who does he bully and who does he pick on, right? Running around the dressing room, using slurs towards your teammates, and bullying people who are not, going to fight back, right? That's the definition. I think they should have Suzuki and put Monty in. Okay. But again, I don't think that made any difference tonight, Frank. I don't think that was the difference in any way tonight. It's like Jake Paul fighting Mike Tyson. Well, I don't know about that. But I guess I get what you're saying. But I mean, Mike Tyson came close to knocking Jake Paul's block off early in that fight. If a small guy wants to fight a big guy, then go, big guy, go. Well, yeah. But again, if a big guy's running around looking for a small guy to fight, or choosing a small guy to fight, and running away from the big guys, different story. When you vote for a guy and that guy goes and tries to fuck over our country, hell yeah, we're going to boo you, yes. It's hilarious watching Americans on Twitter lose their minds over the anthem booing while their president is literally trying to take us. Well, again, people are stupid nowadays, right, Rumbum? People are stupid nowadays. No, the booing is at Trump, disrespect to Canada, a friend and ally. I got to go pick up a client. Have a great night, everybody. All right, Run with Kings. Great talking to you. Thanks for coming by. I appreciate it. Have a great Sunday run. What's that mean? Oh, your tip. Great Sunday. I got you. Run 20. I understand. I understand now. Do you want to do the scoreboard, guys? Let's have a quick look at the scoreboard. So scoreboard's pretty straightforward. As I said, 3-1. It was 1-1 after one period. McDavid scored early on a nice high backhand, really nice play. Nice pass from Drew Doughty, caught McDavid at top speed, and McDavid went in, beat the defender, and then beat Hellebuck up high with the backhand. Jake Gensel tied it up halfway through the period. Then Dylan Larkin scored a bit of a soft one. I guess we could call it soft on Jordan Binnington at 13:33 midway, a little after midway through the second period. And that was pretty much all the scoring, guys. It was 2-1 at that point, and then both teams kind of, or the Americans kind of shut the Canadians down a little bit at that point, and nothing really happened. Jake Gensel scored the empty netter with about a minute, a little under a minute and a half left in the game, and that was all she wrote. The Canadians just, they just didn't seem to be able to gather themselves and put that charge together that they needed to score the tying goal. And anytime they did get close, Connor Hellebuck was more than up to the task of stopping them. So that's kind of the way I saw the game. We have the Canadians, I thought, had the better scoring chances, but the Americans had more of the play, right? So we see that, the Corsi and the Fenwick are both in favor of the Americans, which is an indication that they had the puck a little bit more often, more shots towards the net, more of that. But then when it comes to the actual shots on goal, like the shots that hit the goal and the high danger scoring chances, and the expected goals, that was more in favor of Team Canada. So I think the Americans probably had the better quantity, and the Canadiens had better quality to an extent. But at the end of the day, 3-1 was the score on the scoreboard. I'm sure that some people are going to point to the goalies and say that Binnington was outplayed by Hellebuck, and I think that's probably accurate. I'm not sure that that was the difference in this game. I would say that the defensive play on both sides probably favored the Americans. The Americans, I think, did a better job of shutting down the Canadiens forwards than vice versa. Frank says, I don't know why they didn't have any Montreal Canadiens players, certainly in Montreal. Well, again, Frank, it's not about where you come from. I don't think that the Canadian players were necessarily, any of them were good enough to be on Team Canada. I mean, I guess Suzuki would be the only exception, and I certainly don't think that there would be any problem with Suzuki being on the team. I think he certainly was good enough to be there, but at the end of the day, I don't think that there's anybody on the team that doesn't deserve to be there, right? It's a deep talent pool, and there's lots of players that can make that team. Nick Suzuki is one of them, but again, not everybody can make Team Canada. There's going to be guys who don't make it, and Nick Suzuki is one of those multitude of guys who either could or couldn't make the team. There's probably 8 or 10 guys who are no brainer. You're on Team Canada no matter what kind of guys, and then there's probably 12. Then there's probably about another 30 guys who could go either way. And you've got to pick, 12 of those guys to keep on your team. Hopefully Makar is back. He was definitely missed out there. Yeah. I thought Thomas Harley played quite well. I think the biggest issue with Makar going out was that, he caught, the lateness of finding out that he wasn't going to play. Right, like your inability to prepare for missing such an important guy who plays such an important role and plays, as many minutes as Cale Makar does, and all of a sudden, you find out, with relatively short notice before the game that he can't go, and you've got to bring another guy into the lineup who hasn't even really had the opportunity to practice with the team. Chara didn't have a choice but to fight smaller players. Well, Chara didn't fight a lot, and when he did, he certainly didn't pick his spots. What's in the glass? I'm an aficionado, so I'm always interested. This is a Mai Tai of sorts, but made with, at least partly made with blackstrap rum. So it's got rum, simple syrup, lime juice, orgeat, and orange curacao. A Mai Tai, the famous Mai Tai. I just played around with the rum this time. Normally I would use a lighter rum, but I put half blackstrap rum and half Plantation 5. Gallagher picked a fight with Chara. You don't lose, but didn't win either. Yeah, again, Gallagher is a lot tougher than Brady Tkachuk, in my opinion. Gallagher is a guy who, again, I don't think he goes around looking for fights with bigger guys, but again, I've never seen him back down from anybody, whereas I've seen Brady Tkachuk back down from guys an awful lot. Thought Harley played great. Maybe next time, maybe keep him in the next game, and get rid of Sanheim. Maybe. I don't know how that works with the rules. If Makar comes back, I don't know if that means that Harley has to leave, right? Because Harley was a replacement. So if Makar comes back, Harley might not be. They might not have the option to keep Harley and then get rid of somebody else. I don't know that. Somebody might know that and be able to correct me. But that's my thoughts. Does anybody have any thoughts on the scoreboard before I take it down, or any comments or questions about the scoreboard? Again, I think that the numbers would seem to indicate that the Americans had a higher quantity of possession and shots towards the net, so on and so forth. But the Canadians maybe had more, scoring chances. So again, I don't know whether you agree with that or not based on those numbers, but I should do a rum channel. I kind of did do a rum channel. You can check out my stuff on TikTok if you want, guys, or on other social media. The Hali Tiki Room. That's my tiki bar. If you want to check, I don't really do a ton of content on there. I haven't lately, but that's my tiki bar. For those of you who followed me from the very beginning when it comes to this sports and hockey stuff, that's kind of where I started, was in the Hali Tiki Room. And then I kind of branched off and started a separate channel. So, Rob Somerville, welcome back. Not only do you miss out on Makar's defensive abilities, they were also missing his offensive abilities. Yeah, his puck moving abilities certainly are a big help. Transition game, getting the puck up quickly is certainly an aspect that the Canadians missed tonight. Like I said earlier, I don't think they were able to get off the way guys like McKinnon and McDavid, weren't able to get that open space that they normally need to get going. But yeah, I think having Makar back there moving the puck, I think certainly would make a difference. But again, I don't the Americans are missing their best defenseman too. I think the biggest difference here is that the Canadians, is the short notice with which Makar came out of the lineup. I thought that was probably had a bigger impact. When is the NHL coming back? What do you mean, Frank? You mean when is the break over? I believe the break is over on, I don't know, the end of next week sometime. I'm not sure. I'm not sure when the next NHL game is. It's a 10-day break in total. So whatever that works out to. Whatever that works out to. So, what do you think, guys? If you are watching the show, guys, and you enjoy what you're seeing, give us a thumbs up. Really easy to do. The button is down here below. If you enjoy the content, if you're not yet subscribed, YouTube statistics tell me that only about 35% of the people who are watching the show, whether it's live or in a replay, are actually subscribed to the show or subscribed to the channel. So please, if you are watching and you do want to be part of it, I would invite you and certainly ask that you hit that subscribe button. We are around 285 subscribers right now. We would like to get to 500 as a first goal and then sort of build from there. But we're trying to build a place where people can come and talk about hockey, talk about the Canadians in particular, and give you guys a place where you can come and have civil, intelligent conversations about the games, about the team, about hockey in general. And certainly now we're talking a little bit Team Canada. That's a bit of a special edition version here of the show. But Habs After Dark airs after every Canadians game. And, it's a good spot for you to be able to come after the games and talk about it. If you're watching live, that's awesome. If you're watching in a replay, we love that too. But again, we're trying to build a place for you guys to do that. And I love doing this. I love having chat with you guys. And we're having great conversation here tonight, and the merrier, the more people we can get in here, the better conversations we can have. So help us grow the community, hit that subscribe button, hit the notification bell, and if you are enjoying the show, enjoying the content, hit the thumbs up button. That would be awesome. Rat King, I'm surprised Reinhardt hasn't done more in their 2 games. Okay. Yeah. I mean, it's been 2 games. Not everybody is going to be able to, it's a short tournament. I mean, I don't know. I know the Cats' next game is the 22nd, so sometimes around there for the rest of the league, yes. The break, February 22nd, there you go. There's your answer, Frank. 22nd of February. 22nd of February. Yeah, Reinhardt, again, I don't think that Reinhardt has been bad. But again, you could, I mean, I don't know. Well, what do you mean by you would expect more, or you're surprised that he hasn't done more? I mean, you could say that about just about anybody on Team Canada, really, or it's been 2 games. There's only so many goals that to go around. So, No, that's not what it means, Frank. First of all, there's typically a All-Star break that lasts for 4 or 5 days anyway. And second of all, because the break is a little bit longer this year, my understanding is that the schedule has been compressed. So it does not mean that the NHL season will be longer by 10 days. What's up, RDP? Welcome back. Nice to see you, as always. Thank you for joining us. You're pretty sure every team plays on the 22nd or 23rd. Yeah, so there you go, guys. The break will end after 10 days. So, yeah. I see we have 10 people watching. We have 5 thumbs up, guys, so far. We're getting lots of comments, though, which is great, so I appreciate that. Why don't we check out the A-team, guys? Do you guys have any thoughts on who should be on the A-team? Again, the A-team is our version of the 3 stars, except in this case we do 4 stars. These are the guys for the home team. In this, typically it's the Canadiens. Typically it's the Canadiens that we do the A-team for, but because I'm a Team Canada guy, I'm Canadian. In this case, we're only doing Team Canada. So it's the 4 guys for Team Canada that I felt were the best players for the team, the guys who were the stars, the guys who brought it, the guys who deserve to be recognized as the quote-unquote 4 stars of the game, named after the famous 1980s television show, the A-team. So this is our A-team for tonight, guys. Let me know if you agree with me, if you disagree with me, if you think I'm crazy, if there's guys who you think are not on the list that should be, or the other way around. So Anonymous, like I said, it's only Team Canada. I didn't pick any players from Team USA. Like I said, the A-team was born out of our shows about the Montreal Canadiens, the Habs After Dark, where we picked the 4 best Canadian players. We don't really look at the other team. So tonight we did the same thing. So tonight we have Connor McDavid, we have Drew Doughty, Thomas Harley, and Brandon Hagel. I thought Connor McDavid was just the best player on the ice. Certainly in that first period, he looked really, really spectacular. He looked dangerous, scored a really, really nice goal. Drew Doughty was solid on defense. His numbers, his underlying numbers were really, really good. But again, otherwise he was, obviously a dominant player out there. Thomas Harley, I thought in very, very difficult circumstances, played really, really well. I thought he moved the puck well. He played great defensive. He broke up some plays. He killed a lot of plays. For a guy who has never really played at that level before and who was brought in on short notice, I thought he looked really, really good. And I thought Brandon Hagel had a really good game. He obviously had the first fight. He was the guy that Matthew Tkachuk decided he wanted to fight. He did more than hold his own. I thought he did relatively well. I would have liked to see him knock him out. But again, I thought Brandon Hagel held his own for a guy who's not typically a fighter. And then he had a really good game after that. I thought he played well. He played well defensively. His defensive numbers were good. And he had, some decent play in the offensive zone as well. So that's your A-team, guys. Connor McDavid, Drew Doughty, Thomas Harley, and Brandon Hagel. I don't know if you agree with me on that. If you do, let me know. If you don't, let me know. If there's any guys that you think I missed, then tell me. If there's any guys you think I have on there that you thought didn't deserve to be there, then you can tell me that as well. I am looking for feedback, and I'm looking for conversation. So if there's, if you think I'm crazy for having Thomas Harley on there, then let me know. If you think I'm crazy because Mitch Marner isn't on there, then you can let me know as well. The NHL built this break in the schedule to accommodate the Four Nations Cup. The same thing will happen next season when the NHL breaks for the Winter Olympics. Yes, that's correct, Rob. So they haven't lengthened the season. What they've done is they've compressed the schedule for all teams in the NHL. Whereas the All-Star break is typically 4 or 5 days, I believe. This one was 10. And for the Olympics, I believe it will be closer to 2 weeks, in which case they will also have to compress the schedule, although they may also extend the schedule on either end. I'm not sure at the beginning or the end of the season to accommodate the Olympics. I don't know what my I never really gave it any thought, anonymous. I didn't really think about who I would pick if I was picking. I mean, certainly Gensel would probably be on there. Hellebuck would probably be on there. Would you have 3 Americans and 1 Canadian? I don't know. I never really gave it any thought. Hagel played very good. Would like to see him move up, maybe play with McDavid. Also thought Brad Marchand played well in his limited time. Yeah, I agree with that. I'm not a big fan of moving guys up, certainly based on small sample sizes. Again, a lot of times the reason a player looks really good is because of the role that he's playing in. He's playing well in that role. Like Brendan Gallagher is the perfect example on the Montreal Canadiens, right? He's having a really good season, and a lot of people are talking about because he's having that really good season that he should move up to the second or the first line or get an opportunity to play on those those first 2 lines. But the reality is the reason he's playing really well is because he is on the bottom 6 and he's playing that role really well. I don't know that Brandon Hagel or Brendan Gallagher would play, would have the same impact on the game if they were trying to play in a top 6 role. Like Jake Evans, right? Jake Evans is playing really well and he's having a great year, but he's having a great year as a 4th liner. If he was on the second line and had, playing the games that he is, then he's just, an average guy or a below average guy. So I'm not a big fan of this, oh, you're playing really, really good, let's move you up to the top 6 kind of thing. Brandon Hagel's playing good because he's an awesome 2-way hockey player. He plays good defensively, and he can produce at a high level for a guy who plays in the bottom 6. So, will that mean more back-to-back games? It does, and it already has, anonymous. Yes, there were more back-to-back games at the first half. Yes, so throughout the entire season, there will be more back-to-back games. You are correct. Well, I hope Canada meets U.S. again for the final. I do as well, Frank. I think that would be really, really fun to watch. You attended today's Sweden and Finland game. Okay. 3 seats above the penalty box. Best level of hockey and intensity I ever witnessed. What a show. It was a great game as well, PLW. You're right. I watched that game this afternoon. I actually did a workout. Spent my afternoon in the gym and had the game on. And sort of took my time and did my own thing in the gym, and it was a fun game to watch. I thought Patrick Laine had a really good game. Built some of his confidence back. It was unfortunate that Yoel Armia didn't get to play, but no, it was a fun game to watch. I think a line reshuffle needs to happen. So what would you shuffle? What would you shuffle, Rumbum? Like you have McDavid, and like who are you shuffling around? Like I don't know. And I mean, to me, I'm not a big fan of shuffling lines. I like to keep guys together because I think the more guys play together, the more chemistry they build and the more experience and sort of familiarity they get with one another. So for me, it's like I don't get I'm not a big fan of doing that. I get that it needs to happen at times. I'm definitely not a big fan of moving guys into different roles. Like, the role you play on the 4th line is a lot different than the role you play on the 2nd line. I think you can move guys around between the 1st and 2nd line, and you can maybe move guys around between the 3rd and the 4th line. But as far as moving guys from the bottom 6 up to the top 6, I'm not really on board with that. Parayko, Bennett, Hagel for setting the tone. McDavid. Did they set the tone, PLW? Did those fights really make a difference at the beginning of the game? Did either team really get any momentum or build anything off of those fights? I don't know. I don't think it didn't do anything for me. I thought those fights were kind of non-factors, really. I mean, yes, there was some entertainment value to it, I guess. And certain people would like to watch that stuff, but again, I don't know. I don't know if I would give those guys stars of the game for setting the tone. I guess they stood up and did their job. I guess to that extent, maybe, but I got to admit, much more interested in this than the All-Star game. Well done by this is obviously a far better product than anything we've ever seen from an All-Star game. probably ever. I was going to say in a long time, but realistically, it's probably better than anything the NHL has put on as far as an All-Star game is concerned. Laine playing with good players. Yeah, I don't think it's not the issue with Laine PLW. If I'm being honest, I mean, it's not his teammates that are the problem. It's not. I think he's, for Laine, I think the biggest factor is confidence, and for him, I think his confidence can get damaged pretty easily, and it can make a huge difference in his game when his confidence is down. Again, him playing with Doc and with Newhook, I don't think is the reason why his confidence is down. Obviously he played with those guys for a period of time while the team was doing very well. So again, I don't think that's not something I would agree with. Reunite the Nova Scotia line, maybe put those three guys out there together, defensive line, especially without Makar, makes it very tough. I expect an upset of Finland versus Canada. You expect that, do you, PLW? I mean, I don't know what to expect, and I certainly, if the Canadiens don't show up against Finland, then I think they're in for a surprise. I think the Canadiens have a better team, but like I said, if they don't show up with their A game, then then they're gonna be in for a big surprise. Best hockey since 1987. Yeah, I can live with that. I would like to see Sid with McDavid. I think Sid's IQ would complement McDavid very well. And they play McKinnon with Marner and Marchand, move Stone to the third or fourth line. Yeah, again, I'm not a second guesser. I'm not a second guesser of like roster building and line matchups. Like to me that's a hard job. And there's a lot of options and a lot of possibilities there. I don't know. I don't know. I mean, yes, those all of those things you say, Rumbum, make sense, and I don't disagree with any of them. But at the end of the day, I think that you could make legitimate arguments and provide legitimate reasoning for any type of line pairings or line matchups. It's just, again, you could say the Nova Scotia line, right? That makes sense together. And you could say that, McKinnon and McDavid should be out there together because of, their speed. The speed together would be really tough to defend. And, again, I think, these are great hockey players, right? And there's going to be, good reasons to put any of them together. Like there's no weak sisters on, amongst any of those forwards. So, thank you, Frank. I appreciate it. Thank you for the thumbs up. For those of you who have not yet hit the thumbs up button, I see there's 12 people watching, and we've only had 8 thumbs up. The button is just here below the screen. You're really, really easy to do. If you're enjoying the content, hit the thumbs up button, hit the subscribe button, hit the notification bell, all that good stuff. Easy peasy, easy to do if you are so inclined. Again, the subscribing does help us grow our channel, helps us grow our community, and it would be awesome if you would do so. Laine has always been a streaky player. You take the good with the bad with him at this point. Yeah, again, I partially agree with that, Aiden. What I don't agree with is that I think the more you become open and transparent and understanding of your mental health questions and issues and whatever, I think you become more able to harness that, right? Obviously, earlier on in your life when you're first learning about your, how your mental health affects your performance and so on and so forth, you can be streaky and you can be up and down. But again, I think that, admitting that that the issue is there and getting help with it and certainly sharing it with the people around you, certainly the people who, employ you and stuff like that, the coaches, the GM, the fact that they now know that he has these issues means that, when he does start to struggle, they're not just going to simply, treat him like a pariah, and his teammates understand where he's coming from, and so I think you can then sort of avoid that streakiness. And again, it's a work in progress. It's not going to be something that goes away overnight. It doesn't mean that you're just automatically going to turn into a guy who doesn't have down days or doesn't have performances that aren't at the same level as other days. But I think as time goes on, and as long as you continue to work on those things, I think you can sort of level off a little bit, which is probably what he's trying to work towards. And he's probably not there yet, but and he's obviously struggled. But he's talked all along, right? The thing that he struggled with the most was with his confidence and the fact that he was his own biggest critic, right? He would get down on himself, and when things went badly, and he wasn't playing well, he would, start to doubt himself, and he would start to sort of, self-criticize and, get down on himself. And, we're still seeing that a little bit from him. But the difference is now, I think, is that hopefully the Canadians are aware of that, and he's aware of that, and the people that are helping him with his mental health are aware of that, and they'll be able to sort of reverse that before it builds into a scenario where he's ready to quit hockey again, or he's ready to, I got to get out of Montreal, or I got to, or I've got to, find another team, or I need a new start. Like hopefully, because, everyone is more on board and aware of what's going on with him, and, the tendencies and the proclivities. I guess proclivities isn't the right word, but the way that he is, and the way that, his mental health affects him. Maybe now they'll be able to nip that in the bud before it becomes, more than what it needs to become. If Finland carries any momentums from their game today into the next one, Finland-Canada should be a very fun. Yeah, again, I think that all four of the teams in this tournament have the ability to to pull off an upset. So, yeah, again, Rumbum, I'm not disagreeing with you. I just think that when you've got such a collection of talent, you can really find reasons to pair anybody with anybody, right? It's not like it makes no sense to have Crosby with McKinnon, and it only makes sense to have Crosby with McDavid, or it's just like realistically you can make arguments, across the board. These are all great hockey players, and at the end of the day, they should all be able to play with one another and do well. Again, I think there's rationale behind just about any type of combination you put out there. Laine was playing with hardworking players today. Okay, I mean, again, what do you mean by hardworking players? Are you suggesting that Kirby Dach is not a hardworking player? Are you suggesting that Jake Evans is not a hardworking player? Are you suggesting who are you suggesting is not a hardworking player? PLW. Lehkonen only saw the ice once in the third period. Kakko took his place, played a very physical game the rest of the way. Yes, that did happen, PLW. Yeah, you're right, Billy D. Amazing watching the game. Center gets tossed. You're forced to bring McKinnon in for the draw. What a luxury. Yeah, again, that's another result, another benefit of having such a strong team, right? You've got guys who can do a lot of things really well, including take faceoffs. I like how open Laine has been with his struggles. It makes him very likable and very personable. Yeah, and I mean, I think for him, like to me, that was a big key of him coming to Montreal, was that not only was he aware of his struggles, but that the team would be aware of them as well. So, like I said, with these recent struggles, my hope is that the team didn't just sort of that the team is is conversing with him, is communicating with him, and talking to him about, okay, let's work through this, and how do we make this better? Like, we don't want this to sort of build into something bigger than it actually is. Like, it's let's deal with this right away before it becomes an issue where you're no longer happy playing hockey. We want you to be happy playing hockey. Right, and I've said that from day one, right? Everybody was asking me, when they signed Laine in the summer, everyone was saying, oh, what are your expectations for Laine? Is he going to be a 30-goal guy or is he going to be a 40-goal guy? And to me, I said all along, and you can go back and you can watch all the videos, whether it was on TikTok or whether it was on this show or whether it was on, Coach's show like Hockey Nation Live, any of those shows. I said all along, my expectations of Patrick Laine have nothing to do with production on the ice. My hopes and expectations with Laine and, the measurement of success for Laine will be whether or not he can get through this season and enjoy playing hockey, whether he can love going to the rink, whether he can get back to a point where he loves playing hockey again. And to me, that's the bigger accomplishment for him. It's not whether he scores, 20, 30, 40 goals. It's about whether or not he, can maintain his love for hockey over a lengthy period of time to where, it becomes the habit, right? Him enjoying going to the rink is the norm as opposed to, the exception. So playing under Torts definitely hurt him. Playing under Torts hurts anybody. John Tortorella is a terrible hockey coach, in my opinion, and I don't think that he is beneficial. It benefits anybody. How so, PLW? Give me some concrete examples and reasons why you think that Lundell works harder than Kirby Dach. What is it that you can tell through the TV screen that would indicate to you that one player works hard and the other one works less hard? I'm going to suggest to you that that's an impossible task, right? The reality is that we as hockey fans have absolutely no idea how hard players are working. We have no ability to assess effort. We have no ability to assess, whether one player works harder than another or whether one player is lazy or whatever. Again, I think you're overestimating your abilities when you suggest that you have the ability to tell whether a player works hard or not based on something that you watch through a television screen. It's not possible, right? It's like you trying to tell whether or not somebody did something intentionally or unintentionally or whatever through a It's not possible. So again, your suggestion that Kirby Dach doesn't work hard or doesn't work as hard as Anton Lundell, I think is more of a reflection of the fact that you don't particularly like Kirby Dach than it is anything else. Kirby Dach works hard, right? You don't get to be an NHL hockey player unless you work hard. Lazy players don't make it to the NHL. That has nothing to do with his effort level, PLW. There's nothing to do with his effort level. Zero. None. Like not even remotely anything to do with his effort level. Again, if you are watching the Montreal Canadiens and you're listening to Kirby Dach be interviewed and you're listening to his comments and you're listening, if you're drawing the conclusion that Kirby Dach doesn't work hard, you're simply either not paying attention or you're intentionally misunderstanding the situation because of some other type of agenda you have, which I've seen before. You're not particularly much of a fan of Kirby Dach. The reality is you have zero clue whether or not Kirby Dach works hard or not, and the reality is that he probably does. First of all, because you don't, like I said, you don't make it to the NHL without working hard, and second of all, if you listen to him speak and you listen to the way he communicates, again, this is another sort of emotional reaction from a hockey fan. I highly doubt Binnington comes out, considering Doug Armstrong as a GM. Yeah, I don't know that Binnington deserves to come out. I don't know that Binnington deserves to come out. I mean, honestly, I wouldn't put any of the blame for tonight's game on Binnington. Obviously, maybe it would have been nice for him to save that second goal, but tonight was not Binnington's fault. Comparing Dach dynamism and intensity level versus Lundell, really, IQ in the D zone, emotional. No, I haven't. Well, you don't. Your eyes cannot assess work rates and effort levels, PLW. right? Because guys play badly doesn't mean they're not trying. There's hundreds of factors that could go into whether or not a player is playing well or not. It's not because they're lazy. I'm sorry. It's just not possible. You don't have that skill or that. If you had that skill or that talent, you'd be a billionaire. If you could look at a TV screen and determine what was going on inside of another person's head, you would be a billionaire. You wouldn't be on this channel talking to me right now. I'm sorry. It's just not possible. And again, your reaction is more based on, the emotions that you feel towards Kirby Dach because you don't particularly like the player. Right? Like we could argue like, okay, Guy Lafleur, right? One of the greatest Canadiens players of all time. Right? We could argue that he was a lazy player because we know historically that he was a guy who, didn't really work that hard. He didn't train in the off season. He didn't train, whatever. He smoked in the dressing room. He did all kinds of stuff or whatever. But at the end of the day, you cannot assess a player's effort level from what you watch through a TV screen. It's just not possible. Right? Like I can't sort of take a video of you at your job and make some sort of assessment about what your mental approach to your job is. I don't know what you do for a living, but whether it's whatever or whatever, I it's not possible. You don't have those talents, right? You don't have the ability to do that. Very unfortunate that Team Canada's GM allows his decisions to be influenced by his bias towards his NHL team, but it is what it is. Yeah, I think there's a lot. There's always some of that goes on, Aiden, right? Like, I think the idea that Logan Thompson isn't on this team has a lot to do with the fact that Peter DeBoer didn't want him. Binnington is there because Doug Armstrong is involved. There's always a little bit of that goes on. But like I said, at the end of the day, for Canada, the talent pool is so deep that, I really don't. If you think that, Canada selected the wrong team, then it's not just about talking about the guys that you think should be there. It's also about talking about the guys that are on the team that you think don't deserve to be there. And I don't really think there's anybody on Team Canada that don't deserve to be there. Dach and Lundell are very different players and very different teams. Knowing that the Kachucks are being hailed as American heroes when they just picked on guys half their size and don't fight. Well, and they didn't win the fights either, Rumbum. Again, those fights I don't think had any impact on the game, really. But again, people get excited about fights still, I suppose. So players are more lazy than others. Work rate are not equal. Well, that might be the case, PLW. But again, you do not have the ability to assess that. Neither do I. We as human beings don't have the ability to assess that. We just don't. You can talk about guys who work really, really hard, like guys who, are in the gym all the time and, guys who train in the off season and whatever, and blah, blah, blah. But at the end of the day, you have no idea what Kirby Dach's work rate is like. You have no clue. Zero clue. You can sit here and pretend that you do, and you can tell me this, that, and the other thing. You have no idea what Kirby Dach's work rate is like. You have none. If you were his teammate, yeah, maybe you could do that. If you were his coach, maybe you could do that. If you were, his trainer, maybe you could do that. If you were a guy that was, in their dressing room on a regular basis, maybe you could do that. But as a fan who watches the games on TV, you have no clue. None. Yeah, again, it's crazy. It's a ridiculous thought that hockey fans think that they have these abilities that they don't. Right? It's ridiculous. It's literally ridiculous. Like people talking about Patrick Laine, calling him a lazy hockey player. Like former NHLers doing this. Gilbert Delorme, coming out and saying that Patrick Laine is a lazy hockey player. Yannick Bouchard questioning his Patrick Laine's character. Like all these people who you don't have the ability. Human beings do not have the ability by watching a guy on a television screen to tell whether he's obviously I'm not obviously yeah, okay, if a guy is floating around on the ice and he's not even like looking at the puck and he skates around for 30 seconds and then goes back to the bench and doesn't do anything. Yeah, of course. But again, that's not what's happening here. I guarantee there are some players that don't put in the same effort as others, but hell if I know which one is what. Yeah, again, there's no way to tell that. It's like here's the exact. People would tell me after the Matt Petgrave and Adam. Sorry, I can't believe I'm drawing a blank on his name right now. The incident in England where the young hockey player was killed with the hockey skate. Right? People would sit there and tell me that Petgrave did it on purpose. Oh, you can tell he did it on purpose. You know this, that, and the other thing. Oh, you can tell. Well, no, you can't. You can't tell somebody's going on and what's going on in somebody's mind by watching, a video of a hockey game. You just can't. It's not possible. You don't have those abilities. Okay, but you don't know that, PLW. I agree with you. Some players do that, and some players pace themselves. But again, you don't have no idea who those players are. You can't tell that by watching a television screen. The goalies are the selections that I questioned. I thought Thompson, and Kemper. Yeah, but again, the thing with the Canadian goalies right now is that, from one month to the other, the right guys could be different, right? Like, the team was picked in early December, I believe. I think that's when the team was first announced, was it? I think December 4th or 5th, something like that. And so, where we are in February is very different than where we were in December and where we might be in March. So it's not a situation where, it's like the Americans where you've got, guys who are going to be good no matter what. With Canada, you've got probably 5 or 6 or 7 guys who are all pretty average. And so, what you're looking for, I guess, is the guy who has the hot hand at the right time. And when you're picking the team, a month and a half, 2 months before, why are they keep showing this freaking fight? They're showing it 100 times. Because you don't know where the team is going to be in, a month or two when the games are actually played. It's a tough call. It's a tough call, right? You could pick Logan Thompson in December and he could absolutely fall off a cliff and be horrible, right? So, but meanwhile, if the Americans pick Hellebuck, then they're pretty confident that he's going to be pretty good, right? There is a different situation, right? You could pick Samuel Montembeault tomorrow, and maybe he's not doing that great, but in a month from now, he could be the hottest goalie in the league, or one of the top 5. It's a different situation when you are dealing with a mediocre, talent pool like that. So, yeah, it's tough. The 2026 Olympic selections should be interesting, though. Yeah, again, right? So in 2026, maybe Kemper falls off a cliff. Maybe Kemper's no longer even in the discussion anymore. And maybe there's a new guy that we're not even thinking about right now that's in the discussion. Like maybe, Devin Levi is on fire. Maybe, this guy or that guy is in the, like it's, when you're dealing with an average talent pool like that, the ups and downs are significant. Whereas, where the Americans, you know who their guys are. Hellebuck's going to be there. Swayman's going to be there. Ottinger's going to be there. Maybe Dustin Wolf is going to be there. So it's a different scenario for a team where you've got established guys who have been playing well over a longer period of time. I'm surprised they didn't bring Fleury for the veteran presence, considering the third goalie basically has no effect. I agree with that, Anonymous. That was a thought I had. I thought that Fleury would have been a great pick for your third goalie. Again, as you say, little chance of playing. But again, Fleury, there'd be no problem if Fleury had to play. I mean, I think he's a more than adequate goalie in the NHL right now. I think he's more than adequate to do the job. But at the same time, if he didn't get in the game, then he's a fantastic dressing room guy. Like he's a guy that you want to have around. He would raise morale. He would be a guy that the other players got along with. He'd be a guy who, lightens the mood. He brings you everything you would possibly want in a guy in the dressing room. And he brings a veteran presence. Stanley Cup winner, guy who's played internationally before, first overall draft pick, all those things, right? Veteran. And I think, I agree with you. I think that Fleury would have been a pretty good choice as the third goalie for Canada. I don't know much about prospects, but I wonder if there's any big goalie prospects coming up that Canada could look at for the upcoming Olympic Games. I think the only one that's really on the radar right now, I think, would be Devin Levi. Although he has kind of struggled to live up to his potential of late. So Suzuki, Doc, Dvorak, Laine on pace versus Evans, Galley, Anderson, Heineman, Caulfield, even Slav, higher Rickwork. Well, it's not clearly visible, PLW. Sorry. It might be clearly visible in your mind, but you have no idea. You have no idea which of those guys. So pace, maybe some guys have more pace than others. But again, you don't have any idea whether guys work hard or not. I mean, again, I've repeated myself 25 times, and I keep saying it over and over again. And again, if you think that you have the ability to watch a TV screen and determine whether or not somebody's trying, determine whether what somebody's work rate is or what their effort level is. Yes, obviously, if somebody's clearly, obviously not trying and not putting in any effort whatsoever, yes, you can definitely see that. But you don't have the ability to assess an individual's effort or work rate level. We're not talking about pace, PLW. We're talking about effort level. What do you mean by pace? Do you mean speed? Do you mean quickness? Like, what are you talking about? Anderson's a faster skater than Nick Suzuki. Yes. But that doesn't mean that Suzuki's lazy or has less effort or has a lower work rate. PLW. Do you think that Josh Anderson works harder than Nick Suzuki does? I don't get that. You get to watch these guys for 60 minutes, 2 or 3 times a week. You have no godly idea what they do for the rest of the week. What do you mean by effort level? What do you mean? Does Josh Anderson go to the gym more often than Nick Suzuki because because he skates faster? Is he better with his diet or his nutrition because he skates faster? Is he a guy who takes care of his body better in the off season because he skates faster? What are you talking about? I don't understand how you believe that you have this ability. Do you have a camera in the gym, like the training center at the Bell Center or at the in Brossard at the CN Center? Where do you think that you have this ability to determine whether these guys are working hard or not? Levi's an interesting player. I've watched a couple Sabres games. In some games, he looks like Prime Carey Price, and other he looks like Vesa Toskala. Yeah, I think Levi has struggled to get to that level, which is a cautionary tale. I think for fans who think that Jacob Fowler is a guaranteed sure shot NHL superstar, right? Devin Levi was an NCAA superstar as well, and hasn't made it yet. Pacing your game, yes, it happens, especially for players playing many minutes. Okay, well, again, PLW, you can continue to talk about this, but you're talking out of your ass now. I'm not trying to be rude about it, but again, I think I've spoken more than politely about this issue. You have zero clue about whether or not these guys work hard or not. None. Zero. Nil. Zilch. None at all. You think you do, which is crazy because I think it's pretty disillusioned to think that you have that ability. You don't. You have no ability to do that. You have no ability to determine, or again, so you're talking about watching the games themselves, first of all, which is only a tiny, minute portion of what these guys do to work hard to be good hockey players, right? They do, 90% of what they do happens off the ice. You're watching the games, right? And so, and even if you are watching the games, the idea that you can tell by watching the games whether one guy's working hard and whether one guy's not is I mean, it's completely, you're delusional. It's delusional to think that you can do that. It's delusional to think that you have the ability to do that. You have no idea. None. Levi definitely needs some seasoning and time, but I hope he turns out to be good. Yeah, again, I mean, I hope for all players to turn out good. I mean, these guys are all trying to live out their dreams and become professional hockey players, right? So, oh, wow. Wow, Anonymous. That was, yeah. He struggled. I mean, he's shown signs of being a really good goalie, but goalies sometimes take a long time to develop. Sorry, Hayden. I'm on TikTok. I'm on YouTube. Come on over to YouTube. The channel is right here. It's on the screen behind me. Come and join us at Recliner Sports 4 on YouTube. If you want to join the conversation, come on over. We would love to have you or anybody else that's over there on TikTok watching. Come on over and join us. We're having a chat over here. If you are over here already, then hit that subscribe button down below and hit the notification bell. Thumbs up. We've got 9. Can we get to 15? Maybe we got 7 people watching live right now. But in Levi's defense, Buffalo has a bad track record with rushing guys to the NHL and affecting their development. Yeah, that's true too. I mean, that's not a great team to play in front of or behind as well. Last year, I mean, they brought Levi in to be part of a 3-way goaltending situation, which also made no sense for a young kid like that. Yeah, I agree with you completely, Rumbum. The mismanagement of the Buffalo Sabres in general, and specifically in relation to their goaltenders, has definitely been a significant issue. We're slowing down here, guys. We got 9 people in here. We got no more comments coming. We've had a ton of comments tonight. It's actually really good. 129 comments. We only have the 9 thumbs up, which is kind of interesting. But if you have any more questions or comments, guys, then I would invite you to fire away. We're probably only going to stay on for a few more minutes. Like I said, things are drying up and quieting up a little bit more. I was kind of looking forward to a busy show. But unfortunately, it was kind of slow, and maybe that has something to do with the fact that Canada lost. I think if they had won, I thought we maybe would have had a little bit of a bigger crowd. Welcome, Hayden. Great to see you coming over from TikTok. Welcome, welcome, welcome. If you do enjoy what you're seeing, please hit the subscribe button down below. Hayden says, I think Winnipeg is going to be scary this year come playoffs. Usually Hellebuck struggles with the high-pressure games. Tonight showed he can handle it. Yeah, I mean, I think this is a step in the right direction for sure. Hellebuck, Hellebuck won't prove that he can perform in the Stanley Cup playoffs until he performs in the Stanley Cup playoffs, right? This obviously, is a positive sign. Does it mean that he'll definitely perform in the playoffs? No, I think the playoffs bring a different element than probably what they're experiencing here tonight. So again, the Winnipeg Jets will be, will get over that hump when they get over that hump. And, Hellebuck will become a playoff performer when he performs in the playoffs. So again, I don't think that this will be, this can only be a positive. This performance so far in this tournament can only be viewed as a positive for him. It certainly isn't a negative, but at the same time, it won't happen until he actually does it, right? Until he goes in and plays Colorado or whoever, and he doesn't have to steal any games, but until he can put them in a spot where they have a good chance to win, then people are going to still question whether or not he's capable of doing it, right? Same thing with guys like Austin Matthews and Mitch Marner, right? Those guys are not going to be viewed as playoff performers until they perform in the playoffs, but. It's definitely a step in the right direction. He's definitely a great goaltender. It's just, can he do it in the Stanley Cup playoffs? Thank you, Billy D. Thank you for coming. I appreciate the content and your contributions. Who do I think the Habs get? Who do I think on the Habs gets traded this deadline? I don't know. I really don't, Anonymous. I think there's a possibility that Evans, Armia, Savard, Dvorak. I think those are probably the four that are likely. So not likely to go, but most likely if they are going to go. I don't know that any of them will go. I think that I would be happy. I probably would prefer to see Dvorak go. I don't think we need to have Dvorak, although he is the only left-handed centerman on the team. And he's a good face-off guy. And they would need to replace. They would obviously, hopefully, have a left-handed centerman. I think Owen Beck is left-handed. Somebody can correct me if I'm wrong on that. But otherwise, I don't really have any issue losing him. Armia, if he stays, I'm happy. If he goes, I'm okay with that too. Evans, I would probably rather see him stay, depending on how much they can sign him for. And Savard, to me, I could see Savard playing a seventh defenseman role. I think that Savard would be a guy who you could have as your seventh defenseman, and you wouldn't have to worry about him stagnating on the bench or in the press box for a long period of time. You get him into every fourth or fifth game, and I think he would be fine. You're not worried about having to send him down to the minors. You're not worried about him not developing because he doesn't have any more developing to do, and you bring him in as necessary. Every 4, 5, 6 games, and he gives you 10, 12 minutes. I just like what he brings to the team as far as his presence is concerned, like being a good role model and a good example, a good mentor for the younger players. But if one of Reinbacher, Mayu, Engstrom is going to be a part of the team next year, then who are you moving out? Throw him in the AHL and let him get his reps in like Winnipeg did with Hellebuck or Dallas did with Ottinger. Who are we talking about, Rumbum? Who are we throwing in the AHL to let him get his reps? You're talking about Devin Levi? Hayden, I hope so. Habs fan, but would root for Winnipeg. Yeah, I cheer typically in the West. I cheer for Colorado just because of Nathan McKinnon, really. I enjoy watching. Same here, Andrew. You guys are having a chat amongst yourselves there. I appreciate it. I hope we keep Savard and Evans. That's it. Yeah, Armia has kind of grown on me. I like Armia as a person. I like Armia as a player. I know he wants to stay in Montreal. I think he brings an element to the team. But at the same time, I think, you have to make room for the younger players at some point. Are guys like Joshua Roy ready to make the move up? Is Owen Beck ready to make the move up? Is there anybody else down in the AHL who's ready to make the step up to the NHL? I don't know that Luke Tucker, Florian Jacki are ready yet. So, maybe you can keep those guys. Demidov may or may not be playing in the NHL next year. I think there's a likelihood that he probably will be. So that, that's another spot. So I think you look at, a guy like Newhook maybe moving down to the bottom 6 onto the third line. And then, you've got to fill that third line. Heineman, of course, is going to come back into the lineup. So, I don't think it's the end of the world if Armia goes, but at the same time, I don't hate his game if he's able to continue to play the way he has for the most part this year. I would say at least, the last 25 games or so. I feel like Marner and Matthews were both very silent tonight. Yeah, again, I was very, very interested. Beck is a righty, okay. I was very interested to see the Maple Leafs fans all out in vast numbers after the game against Sweden where Marner scored the overtime goal. I had previously, when I was setting up lineups, I did some sort of mock lineups, mock rosters for this tournament. When the tournament was first announced on TikTok, I put up stuff, and I'd left Marner off my roster. I didn't see a spot for Marner on the team. I thought Marner had to be a top 6 guy if he was going to make the team. And I didn't see him on the top 6. And I thought there were guys that were better than him on the top 6. And since then, of course, he's had a really, really good first half of this season. And so he's probably earned more of a chance to be on the team. But at the same time, I still don't think that he's necessarily the best guy. But, anyways, he had a mediocre game against Sweden, even though he did score the overtime game winner. I thought, prior to that, he played very average. And today, I thought he played very below average. So again, these Toronto Maple Leafs fans were out in mass numbers telling me how stupid I was for not including Marner on my team when I made the rosters in, a year ago or whenever it was when they first announced this tournament. Everyone was kind of jumping all over me, but the reality is he hasn't had a really good tournament, and he certainly hasn't earned any, gloating from Toronto Maple Leafs fans about how awesome he is and how he deserves to be on this team. He's been average. He hasn't been very good. And Austin Matthews hasn't really been a whole lot better. So it is what it is. I think Savard would fit very well into a Cup contenders top 6. I agree, Rumbum. Like a Winnipeg, Colorado, or Dallas, Toronto. David Savard would be a great addition for any Stanley Cup contending team. He's a steady right-handed defenseman with tons of NHL experience, including Stanley Cup under his belt. And I think any team in the league would benefit by having him. Certainly any contender would benefit by having, which is, a possible reason why he would go somewhere. Whether he does or not, we'll see. Again, I wouldn't trade him for just anything. I wouldn't trade him for a 3rd or 4th round draft pick. If you can get a 2nd round draft pick for him, I would probably do that. But again, the Canadiens are in a great spot in that they don't have to get rid of him, right? If they get the right offer for him, then great. If they don't, then they keep him. And they sign him to, a 1-year, $1.5 million contract, and they let him be a 6th or 7th, well, more like a 7th defenseman, and a guy who is a good presence in the room, and he's a good mentor and role model for the younger players, not just the young players that are on the team now, but the young players who will be on the team, in the years to come, whether it's Mailloux, whether it's Reinbacher, whether it's Engstrom, whether it's Konyushkov down the road, like any of these guys who, come to the NHL. He's proven to be a really good role model. I would be happy to keep Evans and Armia at $5 million combined. Yeah, okay. Yeah, I mean, I would probably pay Evans up to $3.5 million. And I would give him up to. I mean, I know people disagree with me on this, but I would give. If you could get Evans under $3.5 million, I would give him 5 years. And I would give Armia like 2.5, 2 million, 2.5 maybe but only for a couple years. I wouldn't give him, any real term at this stage. Keep Evans and Savard, trade Dvorak and Armia. Okay, again, I don't think it really is a big difference either way. I think Evans is probably the main guy you would want to keep. I think Evans is the bigger value. Thank you for the thumbs down, guys. Appreciate it. I have to root for the Avs in the West because I'm dating an Avs fan. Okay. You don't have to, Rat King, but you can. Certainly makes things probably easier to deal with in your life, I would imagine. I am still here around with Kings. Probably not much longer, though. We're all coming up on 2 hours here. I think Marner is soft and undersized. He's very overrated. I don't agree with that. And I'll tell you why. I mean, he's obviously undersized. I mean, there's nothing he can do about that. I've never really been a big fan of calling players soft. I mean, just because he's not a banger and a crasher doesn't make him soft. he has a certain style of game, right? He has he's a very skilled hockey player. He's not a very physical guy, but that doesn't make him soft. He has strengths in his game that are not related to his physicality, and there are tons of players like that in the NHL. And if you think that in order for Mitch Marner to be a good player or to be rated according to his ability, that he needs to go out and do those things, I don't think that's fair, right? And the problem with Mitch Marner is that the Toronto Maple Leafs have never put the right players around him, right? They've never surrounded him with the guys that need to be on that team for him to succeed in the playoffs, right? Same with Austin Matthews, right? Like it's all about roster building, right? If you think that the only way that Mitch Marner can be a successful player in the NHL is if he develops more physicality, then you're barking up the wrong tree. You're asking, you're trying to put a square peg in a round hole, right? The problem with Marner isn't that he's soft or that he doesn't. The problem is that when he gets to the playoffs, he doesn't have the right guys around him for him to be able to do his job, right? Like, it is what it is. Like Wayne Gretzky wasn't a particularly hard hockey player, but guess what? They surrounded him with guys who were, and who took that burden off of him so that he could do the things he could do well, and he didn't have to worry about that other stuff, right? Pavel Bure, he wasn't, a particularly tough hockey player, but they surrounded him with guys who were, and therefore, he was able to perform. Their history is littered with, guys who, if by the Marner definition, were soft. But it's not about him being soft. That's not why their team doesn't do well. The reason their team doesn't do well is because they don't have a good roster around those guys, right? Like do you think Guy Lafleur wasn't soft? By the Marner definition, do you think that like there's all kinds of players who are or were quote unquote soft if you're using the Mitch Marner definition? So again, I'm not. To me, if you think that in order for Mitch Marner to be successful, that he has to be a guy who, bangs and crashes and goes in the corners and whatever, well, it's not going to happen. It's not going to happen. But there's room for guys like that in the NHL. There's tons of guys like that in the NHL, right? Marner can't play in high pressure. Again, same response, Hayden. It's not about the reason he can't is because he doesn't have the right guys around him, right? He doesn't have a team that's built for the playoffs. As Canadiens fans, we can all shit on Mitch Marner and we can talk about Mitch Marner. And, I have my own misgivings about him and what he brings to the game, but he's a fantastic hockey player. And, his issues with the playoffs have nothing to do with him being soft. It has to do with he's a perennial 100-point guy in the NHL. He's a guy who can and will put up 100 points plus every year in the league. And any team in the NHL would love to have that guy. But if you think that he needs to be a guy who bangs and crashes and hits and is physical and whatever in order to be successful, you're barking up the wrong tree. You're barking up the wrong tree. Is Savard a 1 or 2-time Stanley Cup? There's one very easy way to find that out. And I will tell you in 10 seconds. He is a 1-time Stanley Cup champion with the Tampa Bay Lightning. In 2021, he played 14 regular season games for them and had 0 goals and 0 assists and 0 points. And then he played 20 playoff games and he had 0 goals and 5 assists. He is also a Memorial Cup champion, I believe, with the Moncton Wildcats. Did they win the Memorial Cup or did they win the The President's Trophy. They won the President's Trophy. I don't believe they won the Memorial Cup in 05-06. Marner is one of the best two-way forwards in the league. Overrated in that sense. I think he is a good two-way forward in the league. He is a very responsible defensive forward. Or two-way. Yeah, okay, I'll give you that run with Kings. I'll give you that to an extent. There's a difference to me between a two-way forward and a defensive forward. I will give you that Marner is a good two-way forward, or a very above-average two-way forward. Savard, I think, could get a first or at least a prospect in a second. I don't know about that, Rumbum. The market's pretty soft right now. I think it's pushing it to think that you could get a first for him. I think the Canadiens, if they really want to get the best bang for their buck, is they're going to probably have to try and pair a couple guys together. You send like an Armia and a Savard together, or an Armia and a Dvorak together, or an Evan, in that way you can get a better return. Gonna head to bed. Anonymous, thank you for coming. I appreciate it. It is 2 o'clock here. It's 5 to 2. I'm in the same time zone as you, Anonymous. Gally is a lot smaller than him and skilled. He's performed in the playoffs with less, but he's not nearly the player. What Gallagher's most points in a season is, 50, 60? Gallagher would be a guy that Toronto should try and have. Guys like Gallagher to play with Mitch Marner. Brendan Gallagher is a 52 points. 54 points is his high water mark in the NHL. Whereas Mitch Marner has had double that. Right? Mitch Marner has had 99 points. He's got 71 already this year. He had 85 in 69 games last year. He had 99 the year before that. He had 97 the year before that. He had 94 in 2018-19. So, they're not the same players. They're not the same players. And again, a guy like Gallagher would be a guy who you would want to have, as a secondary player to a Mitch Marner. If the players around Marner can't handle the playoff pressure, then it's so much harder for him to succeed. Yeah, and again, they've spent too much money on their top 4 players, Rat King, so they can't bring in the right guys to do that job. Right? They don't have the money. They're spending, more than half their cap on 4 players. Toronto is a great regular season team, horrible playoff team. Well, I don't know if they're horrible, but they certainly haven't had a whole lot of success beyond the first round. Do I sleep? Yes, and I'm going to shortly, Billy D. I'm almost done my Mai Tai. There's a big racket going on outside at 2 o'clock in the morning, which I don't love. It's a helicopter, I think. I know I'm not saying he's better, but I mean in the playoffs. Brendan Gallagher's only been... How many playoff games has Brendan Gallagher played in? Brendan Gallagher has only played... Yeah, he's got some playoff experience. He's got 71 playoff games and 31 points. And Marner has 50 points in 57 playoff games. So 31 points in 71 and 50 points in 57. So again, I get what you're going for. I get what you're going at. But Marner, that's not his style of game. If you're expecting Mitch Marner to be a physical hockey player, you're not being realistic. He's just not going to be that player. And I don't think he needs to be that player in order to be a quote-unquote good playoff performer. There's all kinds of guys who are not that tough who are, good playoff performers. History is littered with guys like that. And the problem with Toronto isn't because Mitch Marner is quote unquote soft. Right? And the term soft to me is such a, what makes you soft? Right? Mitch Marner doesn't pretend to be anything that he's not. He's not a physical guy. And he's not going to be a physical guy. But there's a lot of guys like that in the league. We're all in Atlantic Canada. You're in Newfoundland, Billy D, so you're actually 2:30 in the morning. I didn't realize Marner has 710 points in 630 games. He's a good hockey player. But again, if you want him to be a physical force, or even an average physical player in the NHL, you're trying to pound a square peg into a round hole. Binnington let in 2 softies. Disagree. He let in 1. I think he let in 1 goal that he probably could have stopped. But he stopped 20 of 22 shots. I don't think Binnington was the problem tonight. Again, I'm not a Binnington fan. I don't like Binnington. Anyone who's listened to me, whether it's here on YouTube or on TikTok in the past, I'm not a Binnington fan. I don't like Binnington as a goalie. I don't think I wouldn't have picked him if it were up to me to pick him on the team. But again, I don't think that Binnington was the problem by any means tonight. So I think that's going to be about it for tonight, guys. Listen, I really appreciate everybody. We're well over 2 hours now. It's 2 o'clock in the morning for me. We have a really great turnout tonight. We had 164 comments. I'm not going to go back through all of them to thank everybody, but if you were here and you did participate in the show, I do appreciate it. Thank you for your comments. Thank you for your participation. It's really been a good time. I see that there's 11 people still watching live, but unfortunately, we are going to have to end the show. If you haven't yet subscribed, then I'll invite you to do so down below. The subscribe button is right there. All you got to do is just pound it with your finger if you're on your phone, or you can click on it if you're on your computer. Whatever's easier for you, just hit that button. YouTube says that only 35% of the people who watch the show are actually subscribed. So again, I think we could do better than that. We're trying to grow our community. We're on around 285 or so subscribers at the moment. We want to get to 500 as an initial goal. That's where we're trying to get to. TikTok basically puts you on another tier for your shows. Once you get to that 500 subscriber level, it allows you to do different things. It allows you to let people join your channel, all kinds of fun, cool stuff. So we do want to try and get there, but the main thing we're trying to do is just to try and have more people on our show. The more the merrier, the better the conversation. Obviously, it's awesome having the people that we do have, the regulars and so on and so forth. But the more people we have, the more conversation we can get going. Those of you who follow Coach Frenchie know that he has thousands of followers, and with thousands of followers comes a more lively conversation and a more discussion and more conversation. So that's what we're trying to get to, guys. We've been doing this for about 3 months now. We're trying to build, we're trying to grow, and it would be really, really awesome if you would help us do that by hitting the subscribe button. If you're watching live, or if you are watching in a replay, that would be awesome as well. If you have questions and comments in the replay, then certainly feel free to fire them my way. I know there's a comment or two that I do have to respond to from the shows we did the other night, and I'll probably do that tomorrow. I apologize for not getting to them sooner. It's just been a bit of a hectic day. By the way, I should have mentioned this earlier. My father is in town from Ottawa, and he is being honored as part of the celebrations for the 130th anniversary of the Nova Scotia Colored Hockey League. For those of you that don't know, there was a hockey league in Nova Scotia dating back to the 1890s that had black hockey players only. It was a black hockey league. Obviously, the black hockey players were not allowed to play in the regular hockey leagues around Nova Scotia, and this league was incorporated back in the 1890s, and they played, I think, right up until the 1930s. And so that is being celebrated this weekend. So I've been running around doing stuff about that. There was a great game earlier this evening at the Dartmouth RBC Center it was basically a game between two hockey teams, the Eurekas and the Jubilees, which were two of the teams from the Nova Scotia Colored Hockey League, and they had some young and not so young black hockey players all on the ice today, and it was really, really fun time. And it was really, really exciting to watch. My father, for those of you who don't know, was a member of the St. Mary's Huskies in the late 1960s and was one of the 3 members of the first all-black line to play in Canadian university hockey. So he and a gentleman named Percy Paris and another gentleman named Bob Dawson all played on a line together in the late 1960s for St. Mary's University, a team that was very successful, that won the Atlantic University Championships 4 years in a row from 67 to 71, and went to the national championships for the CIS in each of those 4 years. And so my dad was in town. My dad lives in Ottawa. Like I said, he was in town this weekend for those celebrations. They also honored Billy Riley, who was the first black Nova Scotian to play in the NHL with the Washington Capitals. And they also honored my uncle, Chuck Maxwell, who played pro hockey in the 50s and 60s. And they also honored Art Dorrington, who was a spectacular black hockey player who played in the 40s, I believe. But again, yeah, so that's what I've been doing all weekend. Check it out if you guys are interested in that kind of thing. But that's what I've been doing all weekend. It was really, really fun stuff. Got to hang around with some cool people and meet some fun and interesting hockey players. I actually was talking to Roddy Bossy tonight, who was a teammate of my father's at St. Mary's University and also happens to be Mike Bossy's brother. So I was talking with Mike Bossy's brother tonight, and that was a good time. But yeah, that's pretty much it. Yeah, I should have said something on the last show, Billy D. I didn't. It was a good time. It was a good game. Really cool to see some both female and male, black male and female hockey players, young kids coming up, and some of the older guys. It was fun to watch. It was a good time. And it was fun to hang out with my dad, with Bob Dawson, and with Percy Paris. Who else was there? There was like Billy Riley. Got to see Billy Riley and hang out with him. Willie O'Ree was not there this time. Willie lives in California, so he didn't come into town for this particular event. But yeah, anyways, that's what I was doing all weekend. You could check it out if you want. I'm sure there's stuff online about it. But yeah, anyways, I do appreciate everybody. It's almost 10 after 2. It was a great show. I do appreciate everybody for coming. Again, a tough loss for Team Canada, 3-1. Hopefully they'll get another chance to avenge themselves against the Team USA. That will be in the final, which will probably be next week sometime. There is a game against Finland coming up, which they'll have to get through if they want to make it to that final game against the Americans. So 3-1 final for the U.S., an interesting game, fun game to watch. I appreciate everybody for coming. Like I said, one last time, if you're not subscribed, if you're watching live or if you're watching in a replay, please hit that subscribe button. The button is right here below. Hit the thumbs up, hit the notification bell. Percy used to be your MLA. Okay, so you live out in Windsor. Yeah, Percy and my dad have been friends for years. They played, like I said, they were on the same team going way back to their days at St. Mary's University. My dad also played in the old Quebec before the QMJHL. He played junior hockey in Quebec as well. My Uncle Chuck had I shouldn't say that. My Uncle Chuck had a cool hockey career as well. And I'm actually, I've started doing some research, or I started doing some research about writing a book about my Uncle Chuck. So that's something that this weekend has kind of reinvigorated in me as well, something that's reignited the flame to get back to writing that book. And hopefully I'll get back on track with that in the next little while as well. So anyways, guys, I'm rambling on now. I do have to end the show. It is getting late. I do need to get to bed. I know it's a long weekend, so I have 2 days to sleep after this, but it's been awesome talking to you guys. I really do appreciate it, guys. This is fun for me. It's a Saturday night, and this is what I choose to do with my time, and so I do appreciate that you guys come by, and I do enjoy it. And like I said, if you're watching live, if you're watching in a replay, hit the subscribe button. Help us grow the community so we can start doing some cool things, and we can start growing the community. So anyways, have a great one, guys. I appreciate it. I hope you enjoy the rest of your evening. If there's anything left of it, And if you're not, I hope you have a good sleep and enjoy your Sunday. Peace out.
Hoffman, Monahan parked in front. Dr. Caulfield fires, scores!
You are about to enter Habs After Dark with Recliner Sports.